A new Wordle puzzle is online. Click on the link to play.
Listening to the following video may give you clues. Please like and share the videos.
The TSA will no longer enforce the travel mask rule. The Transportation Security Administration, TSA, will no longer enforce its controversial travel mask rule, following the decision by a federal judge on Monday.
While the ruling is a major victory for the CDC, it does not mean that the policy will disappear for good. The CDC may still appeal the decision.
The rule would limit the freedom of movement of airline passengers. However, the CDC's justification for the rule still stands.
TSA will no longer enforce travel mask mandate. Last month, the CEOs of the three largest US
airlines urged the president not to enforce the travel mask rule. These executives say that while the mask requirement may have reduced the number of disruptive passengers on flights, it was also a way to ease fears about possible infection.
As a result, many airlines are now able to return to normal operating procedures. But is this the end of the mask requirement?
The Transportation Security Administration, TSA, will no longer enforce the travel mask mandate after a federal judge ruled that the agency overstepped its legal authority. Specifically, Judge Mizell ruled that the Transportation Security Administration would no longer enforce the mask requirement nationwide.
As a result, major airlines are voluntarily switching to a mask-free policy. In addition, the Dallas and Houston airports have both repealed the mask requirement as of Monday evening.
While the ruling is disappointing, the White House is not giving up. The White House has not announced what its legal response will be.
While the CDC is still strongly recommending the use of masks in public transportation, the ruling could also affect state regulations that rely on the recommendations. While the decision is not final, the CDC and Justice Department will now decide whether to pursue a lawsuit.
The ruling means that the TSA will not enforce the mask rule, but the Biden administration is still reviewing the decision. Until then, the mask rule will remain in place for now.
Meanwhile, the CDC continues to recommend wearing masks indoors. Although the new guidance is confusing, some companies have already dropped the policy altogether and others are waiting for additional clarification before implementing it.
So, the Biden administration has made a wise decision. As a result, airlines and airports should consider an alternative for their security procedures.
This administration should reconsider whether to appeal the ruling or seek an emergency delaying order.
For the moment, the Transportation Security Administration has decided not to enforce the travel mask rule. The administration also plans to stop issuing new security directives, which will make it harder for the TSA to enforce the masking rule.
CDC could appeal ruling. The CDC could appeal the recent ruling that overturned the mandatory use of face masks on public transportation.
A federal judge ruled that the CDC overstepped its authority in requiring masks for travelers and has given individual airports the discretion to continue requiring them. The Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky International Airport, for example, will no longer require masks.
While the CDC can appeal the ruling, it is unlikely to do so. A federal judge has struck down the mask mandate imposed by the Biden administration.
On Monday, U.S. District Judge Catherine Kimball Mizell ruled the CDC's mask requirement to be unconstitutional.
She wrote that Congress never gave the CDC the authority to impose a mask requirement. Additionally, the CDC cannot condition or dictate interstate travel.
But the CDC will appeal the ruling, and the agency could appeal if it feels it was wrong. The CDC could also try to appeal the ruling in the courts.
The Obama administration has stated that it is monitoring the outcome of severe cases of COVID-19 and is prepared to appeal if necessary. The ruling has caused a backlash from many people who have complained about the policy.
Nevertheless, the CDC could appeal this decision if it fails to get the requisite funding for research and education on the virus. Despite the decision, the CDC continues to recommend travelers wear masks, which the agency has the authority to do.
The suit was filed after 21 governors sued to overturn the federal public transportation mask mandate because they believed that its enforcement would cause harm to the states. It also included airline CEOs who had publicly called on President Biden to drop the mandate.
The CDC had initially implemented the mask requirement in early 2021, hoping to slow the spread of COVID-19. But the lawsuit claimed that the CDC's rule was arbitrary and capricious.
While the White House pressed the CDC to appeal Monday's decision, the CDC could still appeal the decision in federal court. Despite the ruling, the order to wear masks on public transit is still in effect, and the Federal Aviation Administration and TSA have declined to comment on the issue.
Meanwhile, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said the ruling was a disappointing decision and urged Americans to continue to wear their masks when traveling. Passengers' freedom of movement curtailed.
A federal judge has ruled that the Transportation Security Administration will no longer enforce its mandatory mask rule on flights. The Biden administration had pushed for a mask requirement shortly after taking office, and the Trump administration has since opposed it.
The mask requirement eased travelers' fears of infections and helped airlines recover from an early pandemic. But the CDC still recommends that passengers wear masks on flights.
As for how long the new policy will last, airline executives were quick to applaud the ruling. United Airlines employees were seen wearing the masks at Terminal B, and the counter agent who spoke with them was shocked to learn that the policy had changed.
The decision has pleased airline executives and passengers. The founder of JetBlue Airways and Breeze Airways said that the mask requirement had frustrated his crew, which had to put up with the discomfort of wearing a mask.
TSA has not been able to stop the mandate after a federal judge ruled against it. Despite the ruling, many travelers continue to face discrimination and inconvenience because of the lack of proper masks.
They are sometimes even turned away at train stations and denied entry on flights. But these practices aren't legal.
The TSA has to abide by the Administrative Procedure Act, which requires it to comply with federal laws. Although the decision is disappointing, it shouldn't mean that TSA will no longer enforce the mask requirement.
In fact, the CDC and other health organizations are still recommending that travelers continue to wear masks. But despite the judge's ruling, the government has the right to decide whether or not to enforce the policy.
It is unclear if the decision will be implemented, and the Department of Homeland Security is reviewing it. If the decision stands, it may be time to reconsider the policy.
The ruling follows a court order from a previous case in which the CDC ruled against the mandate. Mizell found that the CDC was in breach of its legal authority and failed to comply with proper notice procedures, arguing that the mandate is an infringement of individual rights.
However, this doesn't necessarily mean that the CDC will lift the mask mandate. While many states and cities in the U.S.
are considering easing restrictions on the travel mask rule, they still haven't done so. CDC's justification for the rule.
While a travel mask is a necessary precaution against the spread of airborne illness, some people still wonder if they are necessary. The justification for the mask mandate was questionable at best.
The agency made the rule out of an abundance of caution, but a recent court decision suggests otherwise. The CDC's justification for the mask rule focuses on the fact that air quality on airplanes is highly filtered.
Air filtration systems aren't available in crowded restaurants, schools, sporting events, and concerts, and this requirement makes no sense for those locations. A lawsuit against the travel mask rule was filed on July 20, 2021.
It was filed by two plaintiffs and the Health Freedom Defense Fund. On July 20, 2021, a federal judge ruled against the CDC's rule, but only temporarily.
The CDC has since extended the rule through May 3, 2021. The rule was originally set to expire on April 18, but was extended through May 3.
Earlier this month, the CDC defended the travel mask mandate based on its public health interest and public health. But a recent lawsuit filed by Attorney General Ashley Moody on behalf of the 20 states has weakened the CDC's case.
The lawsuit asserts that the CDC has exceeded its authority under the quarantine statute. Moreover, it interferes with state law, particularly in states such as Florida, which has enacted laws banning forced masking.
The CDC's justification for the travel mask rule is irrational and goes against reason. Although most members of Congress support the CDC's justification for the travel mask rule, A handful of Democrats broke with the White House last month and joined Senate Republicans in a symbolic vote against the rule.
4 of these 8 Democrats are up for re-election in November, and losing one of them would likely mean that the party will lose its control of the Senate. Even so, the ruling is still unclear as to what the justification for the rule is.
Despite the widespread concern of airborne infection, the CDC's justification for the travel mask rule has come with a slew of other concerns. In addition to its impact on air travelers, the rule does nothing to protect the public from other illnesses.
The CDC has been working to develop a comprehensive strategy to combat this scourge. The justification is based on the interpretation of airborne diseases, and it also recognizes the potential for a new outbreak to occur.